Jerry Trimble.
Yeah, Jerry Trimble was a bad motherfucker.
Golden Boy. That's what they call Atlanta's Jerry Trimble.
He hails from Vancouver, British Columbia. Manny, the school teacher, Sobral. Manny Sobral.
Welcome back, everyone, to our podcast, Two World Champs. And today we have the pleasure of having one of the top heavyweight MMA fighters in the whole world, Arjan Bhullar, former 2012 Olympian.
Thank you. I don't know. You should take on Bruce Buffer's job there. I think that's a great introduction.
Yeah. Let's get right on it, Arjan.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
How old were you, and what got you into wrestling, man? Like what was...
My dad wrestled previously, and actually it's a long story. I don't know wherever you want to pick up, but so family immigrated from India.
Yeah.
And came over. You look different, you talk different, you act different, and but the sport of wrestling is a big deal in India, and so that was one thing that he recognized when he came over, and the family recognized, and much like say hockey here, that had great prestige back home. So my dad's the youngest of all his siblings, and so they all went to work in the sawmills in South Van there. And my grandpa and them and all the men worked and picked berries actually even before that. And they told him, hey, go do this wrestling thing and bring honor to the family. And that's sort of where it took off. And he liked it. And he didn't like to work. He liked that. So they all kind of sacrificed and let him do his thing. And so it was kind of already in the family. And came over, with the family when we immigrated, one of the things. And then also back then, rough times for someone like that. And he got into a lot of fights and people in the family did. And so it was a one way to also for self-defense and that type of thing. So that's where our wrestling in the family started. And there's many, many stories and a lot of history there. And then I was sort of born into it. And, but I played football and basketball and all that, but I didn't like the team concept. I like to work hard and get my arm raised. And so I stuck with wrestling.
Seems like a tradition then, almost.
Yes and no. And there were positives and negatives to that. Yes, because you carry that last name, especially within our community, and especially because you went to a high level. And no, because he didn't really want me to. He wanted me to be, because amateur wrestling is an amateur sport. He wanted me to be a pro football player, make that big money, that type of thing, and chase that. And he's like, I done this. My body's busted up, and go do something down that way. But like I said, I picked it eventually myself because I like the individual accountability in the sport, and I was good at it. I'm not saying I wasn't good at the other stuff, but that my competitiveness was better honed in this sport. And then there were expectations and a lot of pressure and working through that and having your dad as your coach, and there's a whole whack of things growing up, man.
Can you tell us the time how you met Manny?
Manny, yeah. So Manny was sort of when the wrestling journey had come to an end. I'd already made my decision, actually, heading into the Olympics, that I wanted to get into MMA. And where that came from was I just seen a lot of people, again, hey, I could be that pro athlete, make some money, but also greater platform. I know I can do it. A lot of people I trained with, competed against, were now champions in this sport and doing very well. And I'm like, hey, listen, I've been with these guys and I got my hands on them. If they can do it, I know I can. And there's a whole, no other Indian in there. There's that whole angle of legacy and history. And so I made that decision heading into the Olympics that I was going to do this. I just didn't know how. And so putting that plan together, I took the same approach I did to wrestling. I needed the right people around me, high level people that are there's a million coaches. Where I want to go to, which is the top of the heap, I can only listen and respect and follow someone who's been there, not someone who just talks about it and this and that. That's the only way someone can get my respect. Either they've been there or they took someone there. There's only two ways. And so I looked into the sport of boxing because as a wrestler, I knew jiu-jitsu, it's a cousin of grappling. That would come fairly easy to me. It would be the striking more than anything. How do I like getting hit? on a daily basis and that type of thing. And I felt I could hit someone, and which I felt I was all right on. And so I threw myself in boxing, where my wrestling does not count. And how are we going to do this? And Manny's the best in the business. And more than anything, also, and I'll speak to this too, Manny. Since they're putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are accomplished, but Manny was a good dude. I asked around, and I only hook in with good people. You need your personal life in order and good habits and all of that, because that's how I was raised to be able to have a long run with someone. And Manny checked all those boxes for me. That's why I walked into his gym.
I'm very humbled, Arjun, of you saying that. And and it's interesting you say you wanted to learn how to get hit, right? But one of the main things that we teach is not to get hit, right? So you're those angles that we talk about is, even if you do get hit, you don't want to get hit with the entire force, right? Coming in on a guy. So that's one of the very important things that we worked on with Arjun, and is angling. And it's so similar to wrestling as well. You want to attack at angles, and you're just translating what you already know. And I was kind of curious when you were talking about a lot of these guys that you were wrestling with and competing with and things, and maybe you can throw out some names for us.
Yeah. So coming down the line. So then I did that, and I grew up a huge boxing fan, by the way. Huge fan. If there's any other sport that I love as much as wrestling growing up, boxing was right there. Anyhow, so putting that aside, then I got into there and figured out, I'm like, okay, I can do this. Now I need to figure out how to put the two together, which is what MMA is. So I reached out to some friends within Canada that worked out in Montreal at GSP's gym. They're on the national team. His wrestling coach is a guy named Gia Sasuri. He's one of the most technical. He was voted the world's most technical wrestler one year out of everybody in the world. He is born in Georgia, Tbilisi, Georgia, and immigrated over and wrestled for Canada on multiple Olympics and world champion and all that. So he was Georgia's wrestling coach and still is. And he brought in other national team guys that I personally knew that I was on the team with, because he's a little older. So I had the connections into there. So the best gym in Canada for MMA is where George was at. And I'm like, okay, I'm going over there. I looked up, asked my Indians, we got family everywhere. So I'm like, Dad, we got any family out that way? And he's like, yeah, we got someone. And they come from our grandma's village. And when they immigrated to Canada, we took them in. So we'll give them a call, because you know what I mean? It's time to return the favor. And we always kept, contact. And as an athlete, everyone would love to take you in and be a part of your journey anyhow. So we called up the family. They go, come on down. I stayed with them a week or two. And I went into George's gym and kind of figured things out. Dennis Kang, local guy, was there at that time. National team guys were there, like I said. And it's a great environment, but no heavyweights. That was the biggest drawback for me. The bodies weren't there. The heaviest they had was middleweight at that time. And so, heavyweights are tough to find anyhow, but you need somebody, right? But what I liked was the cerebral approach of the coach. Very, very smart coach. The way he breaks things down, the way he approaches things, strategize. And I'd love to kind of pick your guys' brain when it comes, when we talk further. In wrestling, there's always two schools. There were the grinders that just worked the workhorses, and there were the technical tacticians, the, super slick. And so the TriStar is known as that super slick technical type of approach. After that, I went down to a gym called AKA, American Kickboxing Academy. And that was a school where you grind, where it's a meat grinder, and the cream rises to the top if you're able to get through it, and then da-da-da-da. And that's the wrestling school I came through, was that approach. So it spoke to me a little more, and I liked that. And so I went down there. I hit up a guy named King Mo Lawal. He's on the U.S. national team. Daniel Cormier's out of there. He was on the national team, same time. Sean Bunch, he's another guy. Cain Velasquez was champion then. All those, TC, Cain, they're heavyweights. They're all-time greats, So I knew, okay, TriStar does this. Let me go down there. I got connects with these guys. It's a 2-hour flight down south to California rather than freezing my ass off 5 hours away in Montreal. And heavyweight game's always different. And I'm like, if these guys have done, coming from my school of wrestling, and they've become all-time greats, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I can just copycat and personalize to myself and make tweaks, and away we go. So then I asked my old man again, hey, we got family down in San Jose. I got to get down there. And so we got
Damn, that's
15
crazy,
minutes from
man.
the gym, as luck would have it. And they're actually very, very involved with sports in the community down there. My uncle down there used to wrestle. He played kabaddi. I don't know if you guys know what that sport is, a martial art for us. His sons both wrestled in high school, one of them in college. So he totally got what I'm there for, and he's totally excited and everything. He's like, come on down. His boys have, one's a teacher, one's a cop. He missed that whole kind of sport angle. So now he hasn't missed a fight since. He comes to every one of my fights, everywhere in the world. You know, then they're good people, family people. They know sports, they know whatever. So I went down there, got into the gym. So check this out. So the only way you get into the gym is if you're part of the team. You can't drop in. That's just the way it works. So I didn't know this. So I get down there and coach goes, hey, do you know what you're doing in the sport? I'm still trying to figure it out. That's why I'm here. So okay, throw these gloves on, throw these shin pads on, and we're going to put you in the cage at DC. And that was my tryout. I had no idea. And so I get in there. Audition to throw me in the cage. I had to do one round with him to see if I have potential, if I have any type of – one thing for the guys to vouch for me, one thing for the coach to see it. So I did one round with him. I must have done well because I came out and he said, okay, you're on the team, and anything you need, you let us know, and and we're off and running.
Yeah, man, that's history, bro. So are these guys your brothers now, the AKA team? Because I know it's a big family down there.
It is. With that kind of approach, the first, wrestling community is very tight-knit, very small, but very tight-knit. So everyone knows everyone, and if you stay in there long enough, there's a mutual respect. And which is what we had. We travel around the world. It's only the Americans and Canadians speaking English. So at the training camps, at the tournaments, all these fucking Eastern Europeans are trying to screw you somehow. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're hanging out together, you're speaking the same language. It's so kind of like us versus them. You know what I mean? You're going across the pond to take these other guys out. That's usually how it works. So we had that camaraderie and that type of thing. Not saying there aren't other, good guys in other teams, but we had to use Google Translate to talk sometimes, So we had that and yeah, tight connection. I want to continue that legacy, and I believe I have still writing that story of great heavyweights coming out of the team. Yeah. DC's just recently retired, so I'm next up, and they have younger guys coming up after that, and so that's where it's at.
It seems to be the case that every time wrestling, right? So you got GSP, you got DC, Khabib, Kane. I mean, the list goes on. Wrestling seems to be the best base, almost like the best base in MMA. Why is that? Like, can you dive into that?
I'll break it down. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I respect every martial art and everyone that gets in there. First of all, you have to. When I didn't is when it cost me. That's my 1L. I was a heavy favorite in that fight. I was overlooking the guy, and the fight was going so well. I was cruising, and when you don't have that respect until the bell rings, that's when you get caught. So I got to say that first. But aside from that, yes, wrestling is, in my opinion, and in many people's opinions, number one, you look at a list of the champions, almost every single one has a wrestling background. Yeah. Number one. Number two, the system in wrestling is very unique where you've got to start the sport very young. So you have 15, maybe 20 years of a grind of how to train, how to win, how to lose, how to do that. Whereas people that get off a couch or come off a basketball court or football, pitch, they're used to a team concept. They're not used to that one-on-one. They don't know how to win. They don't know how to lose. They don't know how to train. You have to learn those things. That takes a long, long time. Forget anything else. Forget the skill set. That type of stuff, if you don't have that, forget about it. You can go into a gym and learn a skill set, but that takes years of experience of being on the grind and being around in that environment. So wrestling, you start at a youth level, generally 5-6 years old. You get in there, then you go to college. After high school, there's state, there's nationals, then there's internationals. There's a system, a pipeline. There isn't that for MMA, right? In boxing, I feel it's a fragmented kind of system as well. Yeah. But wrestling has that because there's a college university kind of NCAAs or youth sport in Canada. And that type of thing. So you got a pipeline to feed in to get a scholarship, to get a degree, to have something to fall back on when it's all said and done. It's a great avenue. And aside from that, that skill set is very, very important. If I'm a boxer, Clarissa Shields right now, she's jumping over into MMA. She's a great boxer. If she has wrestling, she can keep the fight standing. No one's taking her down.
Yeah.
And you can feed into your boxing. If she has let's name a jiu-jitsu, let's say Bibiano, local guy, great jiu-jitsu practitioner. If he has wrestling, he can take the guy down and go into his jiu-jitsu world. Wrestling determines where the fight is, the better wrestler.
Yeah.
I can keep it standing if I want, and I can touch the guy up. If the guy's better than me there, I'll take him down and I'll strangle him or I'll beat him up down there. Wrestling determines where the fight goes. That's why it's most important. If I'm a striker, I'm at the mercy of the grappler. If I'm a grappler, I'm at the mercy of a striker unless I got better wrestling.
Okay.
Interesting.
Wow, nice breakdown.
Yeah.
So those are the reasons. One is just the years, and because you can't. If you look at the matches I've had since I was, say, 5 years old until I got into MMA, I probably had 1,000 matches. I can't have 1,000 boxing fights. I'd be brain dead. Or kickboxing fights, or you know what I mean. It's a very unique, and jiu-jitsu doesn't have that pipeline. It doesn't have a system where you can go youth tournaments to high school, state, nationals, international, Commonwealth, Pan Ams. It doesn't have any of that. Olympics, college now. There's no other. It's only this sport that allows you to get that many reps in competition.
Yeah, it's the most organized sport out there, really, in the martial arts, right, Arjan?
I would say so. Yes. And like I said, it allows you to get so many live situations out there where you can't do that in striking because you'll break yourself down so much. Grappling allows that a little more, and jiu-jitsu doesn't have that comparatively.
Right. Yeah, that's a real good point. I never really thought of that, and that's really because the only way to get better is to compete with better people.
Get the reps, right?
Yeah, get the reps.
You got to get the reps in there.
In real life competition.
Yes, and there's there's guys that are gym warriors. There's guys that are, you know what I mean? So you got to get out there and work all that type of stuff out. And again, how to train, how to make adjustments, how to strategize to win, how to get over all that stuff comes with reps. You're not going to get that you can't teach that as a coach. That comes with going down that path.
So who are some of your favorite MMA heavyweights currently and all time?
I got to say Cain Velasquez is right there because I went with that guy. And I know other guys that have been in the gym. That guy has run so many guys out of the gym that I'm not going to name names that are a part of other teams and done really well, but they couldn't even train with him. And there's guys on our team that can, but then we got to rotate on him because there was a reason his body couldn't keep up. It's because his RPMs were just so high comparatively and his VO2 max. It's that Mexican in him. You can say, I don't know what it is. But that guy's VO2 max and his skill set for a heavyweight in every aspect, he was so skillful. He wasn't relying on a huge one-punch knockout. You know what I mean? Or just a strike or just a takedown. He had the total package and he had insane cardio. And I felt that firsthand. And you put up any other heavyweight in history, I can point at how he would have beaten them. The only way to beat that guy was to catch him. And because if you didn't catch him and put him out, you're done. And there's only one guy that was that guy, and that's Francis Ngannou. And that's the only way he's ever lost. And Junior before that. And interesting, Junior's fight, I remember asking Coach, what happened? Like, there's no way Junior should have beat him. So it was the UFC's debut event on Fox. And he injured his knee. He had a torn knee, his lead leg. And Dana pressured them that the whole Fox event, you're the main event, it's our debut, and the whole event is centered on you guys. You can't pull out. You can't pull out. And that's the one regret Coach has, is not pulling the plug on that because he didn't have his mobility. That's why he got caught, is because he was there, which generally he isn't. And he swore after that he'll never ever pressure his guys to take a fight and push them to pull the plug if anything. And
was that the same event as Sea Level Cane, that internet meme, because it was above high altitude? Was that the same event?
That was in Mexico City. So the story behind that.
Verdum. Verdum, yes.
Oh, right,
Verdum.
right. That's the one. Yeah.
So that was in Mexico City, and as some of you guys, old timers might be able to tell us, Mexico Olympics were
high altitude.
High altitude, and the records were nowhere close and bungled and all that. They'll never go back there. They say So same thing. This was at high altitude in Mexico City, their debut Mexico event. He's the guy breaking the market in for him. And coach begged him, let's go acclimatize. Let's go before. Da-da-da-da-da. He's like, no, my cardio's never been touched. I'll be fine. They showed up the week of the event. Whereas Verdum did a 3-month camp out there at altitude in Mexico, took his whole team, everything, and it showed in the fight.
Arjan, you started going to the American Kickboxing when? How long ago?
American Kickboxing Academy, I'm going to say probably 2014 approximately.
2014, yeah.
And they've had Javier Mendez has been the coach there forever. He had guys, kickboxing for him before. He's a kickboxing guy, right, himself. And then he had guys that kickbox for him. Kung Lee was out of there.
Kung Lee.
Jean-Claude, what's his name? Jean-Claude Lurier, French heavyweight. Yeah. He was there. He fought a guy named Paul Lalonde locally a few times. Yeah, they had some fights. So check this out. So yeah, so that connection to the local guys kind of warmed me up to coach as well. He knows Vince Johnsey from back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So whenever he did kickboxing shows in San Jose, he'd ask Vince to send some guys down sometimes, that type of thing. So they had a relationship. So there's a lot of he has great respect for Michael McDonald. He knows him. So there were a lot of synergy there. And like I said, a 2-hour flight to the best gym in the world. With the heavyweights are the best as well, and sunny California, forget about it.
Yeah, I've been watching some of your fights today, and I'm just curious. Out of 3 fights that I saw you throw 1 kick, and I was like, I was waiting. Your hands, your fucking hands are amazing. Your angles are great. You can bang, and your wrestling's incredible. And I'm sitting there going, when
the kick's coming. Where's
it coming? Yes, I'm curious.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
A few things. Number one, I can kick.
Yeah. Well, see, I saw some of your videos, your training videos, and I'm going, fuck, there they are, and you're just wailing them in there, and I'm going, shit, I know he can kick.
Yeah. So, after we started getting the boxing, that's one of the reasons I went to Vince's out in Surrey was to get those kicks going now. Yeah. And so you sound like them, you could do this to fucking, crank them in there. Oh. So, like I said, I was just such a huge boxing fan growing up. So my mindset is always there. Yeah. But it's in the repertoire. It's in the arsenal. I'm supposed to fight Brandon Vera, who's a kickboxer. And I promise you I'll get one in for sure. So I'll give you that. Oh, but sometimes it takes someone great to get you to that level and get everything out of you. Yeah. And I'll be honest, I haven't gotten pushed to that place yet. And I am looking for that. I've gotten there in training, going down AK. That's why I go there. Yeah. You can ask them. I kick. I might not do spinning kicks, but I can kick. Yeah. I'm waiting for that adversary under the lights to bring that out. I have the wrestling, boxing. Again, I'm sure-footed. I've got both my feet on the ground. Yeah. I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? And I'm the shorter heavyweight. So I'm always looking to close the gap, right? And kicks are at a longer range. If I'm at a longer range, I'm generally in their range. Yeah. So it's I got to think about all that sometimes, right? If I'm boxing range and wrestling range are the same. If I can touch you with my hands, I can also take you down. It's the same range. So you take a step back, now I'm in kicking range. It gets a little trickier because usually my mindset is close the gap, right? So like I said, when I have an adversary that maybe doesn't let me close the gap or it makes it very challenging, then maybe I'll lay a couple kicks into him.
Yeah. When's your fight with Vera? When?
It's frustrating, man. So we were booked before this pandemic.
Yeah.
I think it was April, yeah. And then the pandemic, then we got booked for November, then that got postponed, and we're talking again now for potentially end of February. Let's see.
Do you? I know you meditate. Yeah, I was listening to one of your podcasts. You're heavy into meditation. You got that from your mom, right?
I did, and there, and just I'm always as you guys know, you've been in the game a long time. Yeah. I'm always searching for what the other person might not be doing. I'm always looking for that edge, and I'm talking clean, doping, because I'm a big. I hate those guys. Yeah. But I'm always looking for an edge, and that was one of the things I explored. Techniques, training, what do heavyweights, what do they not do? Because that's what I want to do then.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of, at the highest level, that's like everyone's in shape, everyone's strong, everyone's fast, everyone's skilled, everyone wants it when you get to the very top. So what's going to set you apart is your belief between the ears.
Yeah.
How much you believe in yourself, how you're going to deal with adversity, how relaxed you are to execute, all of these things. That's all between the ears.
Yeah.
And again, you can't learn that in a gym. That's on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
The coach, a long time ago, I was told the coach can walk you to the arena, but it's your job to perform once you get in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love it. Put it on me. I'll bring it home.
You visualize?
I do. I've got a routine I have. So what I've seen a lot of sports again. So I've seen a lot of sports psychs over the years, just because the national team arranges that kind of stuff and da. But MMA, again, so fragmented, you got to seek out resources. There's no system, right?
Yeah.
So I pick, along the way, I started picking and choosing kind of what made sense and what works for me and what's kind of foo-foo, at least to me. And so, again, it was a very challenging visualization you're talking about. So they bring in these coaches who've gone to university and read books, but they've never stepped in an arena. You know what I mean? So that whole concept, again, has to ring true. So I've been very picky as to who I've trusted in terms of that and how I've applied it. And I've kind of refined my routine. But there is a difference between visualization and imagery. Did you know that?
Yes.
What is the difference?
Visualization is where you're actually, imagery. Explain it to me.
This is how it explained to me, and it made a lot of sense.
Okay.
And this is actually quite recent. Whenever I close my eyes, sometimes I see myself doing what, performing, getting ready, all that kind of stuff, what we do. Yeah. Sometimes, like for third person, sometimes it's often first person. And I always thought it's okay, I'm more dialed in once I get to first person. I'm ready to go. I'm peaking. That's what I just always took it as. Mm-hmm. But someone explained it to me recently. The visualization is seeing yourself do it. Mm-hmm. The imagery is having the feeling of you doing it. And
kinesthetic.
And that's generally when you're first person, is when you're feeling the crowd, when you're feeling the moment, you're feeling you strike the guy, you're feeling the takedown, you're feeling yourself win, all of those things. And if you're doing both, which is sort of what I've been doing, and I didn't know the difference, you got the best of both worlds.
Yes.
So that's the difference, and I use both of those. There's a difference between confidence and belief as well.
Yeah.
The daily confidence adds to the deep belief. Mm-hmm. If you do things and you build your daily confidence, because daily confidence, in my opinion, is fluid. You might have a bad practice, you might have a good one, you might have some personal issues or doubts or whatever it is. That's fluid.
Yeah.
But if you have daily confidence, that builds to deep belief.
Yeah. Do you do affirmations?
I do. I think it can also be. I do. The way it's sold and packaged nowadays, it's become a little quirky. But I do have certain things that get me going, that jack me up, and that I know. The
visualization, the imagery, and the affirmations, the three, it's like it's jacked up on steroids.
Yes.
You see it, you feel it, and then you're saying it, so you're reprogramming the subconscious mind, basically.
Oh, this. Yes, that's where it's at.
Man, I used to visualize and feel the jump spinning hook kicks and feel me winning the world championship. And then next thing you know, when I'm in the gym and I'm jump spinning hook kicking and I'm knocking these guys down and out, and I'm going, the shit works. And I was, but it does. And
So you tie that into, you're doing it in your training. That builds your confidence, which is going to build your belief for when you go compete. It all ties in together, right?
Do you journal?
Yes and no. I'm not a big academic, even though I graduated with a degree and all that. I never liked that stuff. Mm-hmm. But if there is something noteworthy, I will make a note. Yeah. I don't write pages or paragraphs or daily. I have to sit down. But if there are aha moments or breakthrough moments and that type of thing that's noteworthy to me, 100%.
Yeah, very cool.
And who did all this before it was even talked about like we talk about it today, the greatest of all time, right, Arjan?
That's right. Float like a sting, butterfly sting like a
I
bee.
am the greatest. He was the best at it.
Yeah. I wonder, what did they have it down then, or was he just making it up as he went along? Yeah.
Making it up, I think. And, it's something that worked, and no one actually put it to pen to paper to talk about it the way we talk about it today. But Ali was doing it before it was even recognized as imagery or visualization or any of that.
They were saying he talks openly how terrified he was of Sonny Liston. You know what I mean? And that was the fight where he was most vocal and and then I told you to all the journalists. You know what I mean?
Because he believed it. He believed it so much that he was going to do it, right? He was going to send Sonny Liston to the moon. Remember? He goes, and I don't know how he said it, but, he's got just amazing words that talk about it.
He'd pick the round. And so in training camp, he's singing that to himself and making himself believe it. And I definitely, all the proof is there.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that you're not into academics and everything, because I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, you're so well spoken.
Let me clarify that. I don't like what happened there to my camera? Okay.
No,
I don't like,
good.
is that good? You're good? Yeah. Okay. I don't like the academics as in go to class, regurgitate what the teacher wants and write this, that. I'm passionate about this. I care about this. I study this. This is what I study.
Right.
So I'm academic, but not in the traditional sense.
Sure.
And so I just want to clarify that. But I study champs. That's what I do. Yeah. I've read so many books, and success leaves clues, as they say, right? So you connect with things. Hey, I do that. That works. And okay, this is interesting. And that's why I like this. You guys are champs in your own respect, in your own field. So this is awesome.
What's funny is Hugo mentioned we watched you in Battlefield here in Vancouver. You're from Vancouver, correct?
Yeah, born and raised in Richmond.
Richmond. So what high school did you go to?
McRoberts. Hugh McRoberts.
Man, that's awesome. We watched you and we're like, oh wow, look at this guy from Vancouver. That's awesome. And then I believe that was the last Battlefield fight, and then you went to the UFC, and we're like, dude, this is it. This is our guy, right? Representing. And then you were just doing really well, and you had that one loss, but again, you were doing well in that fight, and then you just left. You went to ONE FC, and I was like, what the heck? And I didn't know Manny knew you at the time, right? Could you tell us about that? Like, what makes you, trajectory's going up, why leave?
Yeah. So a couple of things. So, trajectory's going up, still is going up.
Yeah. So we got this pandemic to deal with, that's all.
That's it. It's crazy. So we did that, and I fought out my contract. So they wanted to sign me before my last fight. And I said no, because as a free agent, you got more leverage with the company. So when we went into the UFC, we had meetings and we had discussions, and it was to break in India, break in the Indian market. And I was the guy for that first Indian that, So that was the whole, aside from winning and becoming a world champion, that's what made it unique and special to me, and made me unique and special to them. And I'm talking dollars and cents.
You're talking $1 billion and $1.2 billion, 1.2 billion people is what you're talking.
Exactly. And I'm talking honestly, my story can be replicated if it's told the right way. There's so much wrestling and success out there. They learn striking, that country will blow up. You know what I mean? It's the WWE, it's their biggest market in the world is India, bigger than any other country. I just saw a stat actually last week, 80 million people tuned into the show last week. You know what I mean? So because in the MMA, you understand what you're looking at. It's easy to, NBA's trying to get in there. The NFL is trying to get in there. You got to educate the people, and you got to have an athlete. That's how you're going to have that market. So here, you don't need to educate anyone. You get what's happening in the cage, and you have the athlete. Let's go. So that was a discussion with the UFC as we were fighting. And then as we came to the end of the contract, they made me a standard offer. And they said, basically, it's a standard offer. We want you. We want to re-sign you, and here's the offer. And they made it clear that their priority markets were not going to be India. It's going to be Russia and the Middle East because of Khabib. Because they were getting that money out of Dubai, and they were getting the money out of Russia, and they were going to ride that train. And India wasn't there yet. So we're free agents. So we shop around to all the companies, and one championship comes over, and they go, hey, look, we're going to make you this offer, and we want to break into India. We have offices in the country already in Bangalore. These are our plans for you.
Yeah.
And Brandon Vera is our heavyweight champ. We want you to fight. and we're going to make it happen, and da 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 da. And then they showed me the checkbook, and it reflected that conversation. So they were making the investment, knowing that they're going to get that. So I go, okay, I can do this. Let's do it. And it was, if it was in the neighborhood, if it was a comparative offer in the neighborhood, I would have probably stayed with the UFC. I would have. But because they had plans for me, and it wasn't even in the same neighborhood, the two offers financially, I was like, the UFC doesn't win in any regard. It doesn't win anywhere. You know what I mean?
Couldn't you go once you become the champion at one? Can't you just go to the UFC at any point?
I'm in a contract, but yes, we can, and that was always the plan.
Right. So once you're done that contract, is what I meant.
So
yeah.
Yes, and again, this pandemic's really dragging that shit out. I would like to have already had the gold around me and defended a couple of times, and you know what I mean. I've been sitting for over a year now. You know, that's the longest break I've ever had in my life. So I don't like it, but I've stayed active, and I know I've been a lot more active than these other guys, especially Vera. So I'm just waiting for my opportunity and this vaccine to get out there so we get the ball rolling again.
Hey, Arjan, I wanted to touch on you were saying first. Are you the first Indo-Canadian fighting in the UFC? You were, right?
Indo-Canadian, Indian, whatever you want to call it.
And
yes.
Were you the first to compete for Canada in the Olympics in wrestling as well?
Correct.
How's that been, man? Like, that's pretty special. How's that been for you?
So for Canada in freestyle wrestling, in Greco, there was a guy named Yogi Johal that was local in '96. He went for Greco, so I got to give respect there. I was the first for freestyle wrestling for Canada. But what was your question? Sorry.
Sorry, just like how's been the support, and how have you felt with that, man? That's pretty special. So
it is. It's a part of the legacy, right? Like I said, that's a big part for me. That's all that ever remains after that, and the memories in here. So it's a big deal to me. That's why I want this title fight. One, just on a personal note, I want to be the best. I want to be that guy, and I want to have the gold. The byproduct of that is I'll be the first ever world champion in the sport, and that stays forever. So that's why I want to hustle and get this thing done, and then just help the sport grow and continue my journey and challenging myself. And so that's why legacy is a very, very big deal. And I just had my second kid recently. So the great majority of my career they wouldn't have seen. So I want to be at least to point to something and let them know I did something.
Yeah.
But you know what makes me really happy to hear is once you become champion, so many times we see the same story of they losing everything, right? But it sounds like you've surrounded yourself with such strong people and you're very family oriented. So I'm happy that it sounds like you're going to go down the path of the Daniel Cormiers and the Khabibs, right? I mean, talk about Khabib, right? Biggest superstar in the world, especially on that side of the planet. And he's still, listening to what his mom has to say, right? He retired because it was a promise to his mom, and just everything is just so noble and gracious. And I love that you're in that world.
Well, those values and that way of living comes from the home, right? That's where it comes from. That's where it's taught. And I am blessed. I had a stable, home growing up, and my brother, he's a year older than me. He's a lawyer. My sister's, so before I go to my sister, so he looks over all my contracts to make sure I'm not getting jerked around. But we don't have much leverage as fighters, so it is what it is. Those contracts wouldn't be legal in any type of business deal, he says. But anyways, and then I got my younger sister, and she's doing great, and so I got a stable home, and as Manny can tell you, it's not just my folks. I got a whole village here that raised me and continues to support me and guide me. I've got a loving wife who takes care of the kids and supports me full throttle. You guys have been athletes and fighters. You know how it is going on the road, and you have to be selfish with your training and all of that. And she's just so understanding and supportive. And I try to return the favor whenever and wherever I can for that aspect.
So I'm going to paint a picture for you, and then I want you to kind of react and tell me, because I don't know if I'm being naive, but when it comes to the UFC in particular and fighter pay, there's this narrative, especially online, of Dana being this, this evil guy, right? And when I kind of look at him, I own my own business as well, and I put myself in those shoes, and I'm nothing but impressed with the guy, right? He took a $4 million company, sells it for $4 billion. Now he's saying it's worth $10 billion. I don't know if he's just saying that, but I mean, regardless, the success is there. What what's the validity, or what's your opinion on this? Fighters deserve more money, or do they get paid enough? Because I know Daniel Cormier seems to be in defense of UFC, and he's a friend of yours.
You know, he works for the UFC too, right?
That's what everyone says, yeah.
So we have different conversations in the gym, put it that way. But anyways, so I'll give you a little bit of history. First of all, Dana didn't get the company for $4 million, sold it for $4 billion. He had a couple of pals from school named Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta. And those guys, their dad's an old mob guy, and they got casinos in Vegas. And they're the only casinos that are anti-union in Vegas. So let's start there. So they own the UFC, and they sold the UFC, of which they gave Dana a small percentage, and he was a promoter in their face. One brother, Lorenzo, was hands-on with the UFC. His other brother, Frank, was hands-on with their casinos. That's what happened there. Then they had their sale. Yes, you have to respect Dana 100%. He is a wolf in the game, and he's the top dog, and you only get there one way, and that's by being him. He's beat out every other company and all the other competition, and he's made the sport what it is in the short amount of time of what it is. He's a great promoter. I think he kicks the shit out of guys like Bob Arum, Oscar De La Hoya. These guys are doing boxing very poorly comparatively to him. I think he's done a great job marketing the sport, growing it internationally in different markets. And like, look at this Abu Dhabi's where he's doing the fights. He's got the government giving him nine figures, and because of Khabib though, but giving him 9 figures to do these fights, and forget about it, right?
Yeah.
So he's great for the sport, getting us on ESPN and all that. That helps everybody, bar none, top to bottom. But aside from that, he also gives 15 to 20% of revenue to the fighters. And Vince McMahon of the WWE gives 8%. And these are the only two guys that treat fighters without the Ali Act that boxing has outside of that as independent contractors. And we don't have the protections boxing has. There's no association. There's no Ali Act protecting us. There's a group of athletes that have gotten together to try to get us that. And there's it will most likely happen under a Biden administration. That is the reason Dana and the UFC was invested heavily into Trump, because he vetoed their bill already. Trump did. And it was unprecedented. That's never happened on a union bill before. The Philadelphia chapter filed, and the Washington chapter took it over, and Trump squashed it. That's never happened in the history of these anti-union movements and labor movements in America. That's why he was in all the speeches, and they were invested in all that stuff. So now Biden's taken over. He has a guy named Andrew Yang in his cabinet, or soon to be cabinet is what they're saying. And he has said, I grew up watching wrestling, and I love MMA. I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to get them to be able to unionize. And every other sport has 50-50 split owners and athletes and that type of thing. And I want to make it better for both of these athletes and get away with this independent contractor stuff, because then they don't give us health and dental and a pension and none of that. There's no protections. Whereas they tell you when to fight, what to wear to the fights. You're not allowed any sponsors in the cage, and there's no, they're treating you like employees, when to show up, where to show up, how to show up, but they're not giving you the benefits of an employee. So that will change. That's my opinion. There's another group. So there's two groups. That's one group trying to get us the unionization. There's another group trying to get us in the Ali Act. And they had a big win recently, about 2 weeks ago. So the UFC's defense successfully got the case heard in Nevada. These guys won there, and they got a class action lawsuit filed. And the judge gave the okay that yes, this is a class action suit worth $5 billion for the athletes. And it's allowed to proceed as a class action now. He didn't squash it. So they've got that certification. And these guys want back pay, and they want to be under the Ali Act. So let's see. They got a fight on their hands.
That's a great answer, very in depth. So I guess my only question would be: so UFC gives 20%. What do places like One and kind of the other top ones, PFL? What do they give? Are they giving 50%?
So the reason the UFC gives that is because they believe the 3 letters of the U and the F and the C is worth more than the person. Whereas these other companies that are establishing themselves that aren't a UFC have to give more because they have to get those athletes.
They attract them.
Exactly. Yeah. So, for me, I'll tell you right now, say the offer the UFC gave me was based on their 20-80 split, the offer I got from one was significantly higher than any type of 28, even 50-50, any of that. So they're paying me. I'll put it this way. Mighty Mouse Johnson, Demetrius Johnson.
Yeah.
He fought for, you guys know him, one of the
Yeah, of course.
all-time
Yep.
greats, fought
Yeah,
for
of
the
course.
UFC, everything. His last fight in the UFC was something like, after like 8-9 title defenses, being one of the time all-time greats, was something like 120 to show, 120 to win, something like that. You know what he gets from one?
$500,000.
1.5 million, and he's got a stake in the company.
Wow.
Oh
Wow.
wow, that's significantly better.
So, but they're trying to make their mark and all of that.
Yeah.
But that's just what it is, right?
Yeah.
Does everyone get that kind of bump? No. He is a GOAT. He's an all-timer. But there's another guy that came over. His name's Eddie Alvarez. You guys know who he is.
Yep.
He fought Conor
Yeah,
and all that
course.
kind
Yep.
of stuff out of Philly. He's been everywhere. So I talked to him before I even signed him, that type of stuff. And he didn't give me exact figures, but he's like, look, he goes, I had this offer. I had a meeting with Dana. And Dana's like, look, I'm happy for you. He was like, we parted on good terms. But he's like, I cannot pay you that, because if I pay you that, then everybody's going to be knocking on my door looking for that kind of money.
Right.
And he says, I can't pay everyone that. So you are worth that much to that company. You'll be their guy. But if I do that to you, not everyone is. I can't do that. I can't open my checkbook like that. So he parted ways. And he told me he's got an NFL type contract, that type of money. So, you know, you're going to go. You're gonna go there again if I'm being valued for the Indian market, and so I'm gonna get a push from the company as well. Like, what else am I looking for? Give me that gold, give me that money, and let's get going. You know.
So all in all, so it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you know, at the end of the day, it's still not really Dana's kind of responsibility to have the fighters unionized. That's correct, right?
Oh, that would be anti-Dana. Come on now. You're taking money, like you said. You're a business owner. You respect that, and you have to But as an athlete, you know what I mean. You're on the other side of the ball, right? You're
Sure.
labor now.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a classic case, right? But like I said, you got to respect that. He's doing what he is. He got us to a certain platform, but there is a reason MMA fighters are wanted to box.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the money's at.
I knew Arjan was pretty smart, but I didn't realize he was as cerebral as he is, man. Holy
Sure,
smokes, Arjan. The way you pick out the politics and everything, you know a little bit about everything, man.
I have to. This is my life. It's not only it's my business. It's my life.
Yeah.
It's my everything. I don't.
You got to take care of your family, my friend.
No one's gonna take care of my ass better than me. So
Yeah.
I have to stay in the loop and educated and
Take care of
and
that
all
brain,
I
brother.
got. Thank you. I got great management. I got to give a shout out to them too. Funny story how the world works. So I got the same agents as George, right? Same guys that manage him. So it kind of comes full circle. They're a great company, but before anybody else, I've always been taught you watch your own ass, and so that's why I try to stay educated on this stuff and as hands-on as possible. But yeah, that's sort of that.
That's awesome, man. And are you doing a lot of media and interviews these days? Are you getting, like, is your presence known out there?
Yes and no. Yes, I am, especially because of the pandemic, you know. But no, because I turned some of it down. I'm just sick of talking. I want to go out and do something. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sick of it. So
Where are you training, Arjan? Is it mostly in your garage there, or you're out back to your house?
yeah. So actually, funny you mentioned that. So we were always, as you know, looking for a bigger space because we got the kids wrestling club out of here and just too small. So we found a place probably about 6 months ago up the street on number 5 road. For those of you familiar with Richmond. And it's a great big warehouse. And so I got this fight. Then I got, hey, you're going to fight Vera in November. So I'm like, shit. And everything's closed. I can't go to California. Borders are closed. And no one around here is really getting out, or you're not supposed to. And I got a newborn on the way. My we got to keep my wife and kid protected and all that. And so I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? So we got this warehouse, and it was perfect timing. So we got big old space. I got myself my own cage. I got one of those UFC gym cages out of Coquitlam. I set that up. Got my own bags, everything. So I got my own private facility. I got my own wrestling mats, everything. It's about 50 by 90 is the space.
Yeah.
And so it's big. And so it's training for that fight. I started calling guys out. I'm like, okay, we've got a group of 5-6 of us. We're training only here. I got to keep my wife safe, got to keep my kids safe, my family, all that. And we're going to get ready for this fight. So I got a great setup. But then, the fight fell through, and then one of my training partners tested positive, and the whole thing was shut down. And but it didn't spread; it just stuck with him. But the fight had already fallen through by then, so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to shut this down until we get word again, rather than expose myself. Because this virus too is tricky. You hear of athletes getting it, and they're saying that some people are great, but some people got, like, one of the fighters got blood clots and dizziness and da da da. Like, some guys are really getting messed up. And one of the NFL guys, they had to do he has to sit out the whole year next year as well, because it changed his heart. Like, it's crazy stuff. So I'm still in Richmond, but when we open up, Manny, you come through. You guys are invited too.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Awesome,
you're
man.
Manny's friends. You're my friends.
Yeah.
Come through anytime.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate it,
100%.
man.
Thank you.
Cool,
Thank
man.
you,
Well,
Arjun.
thanks so much for coming on, and we'll be in touch. Look forward to seeing you in Richmond, and can't wait for you to get that gold, man.
Yeah, man. We're rooting for you, buddy.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. I'll bring it back
Thank
to Van.
you.
All right,
Thanks,
brother.
Arjun.
Take care, guys.
Hook up soon as you get that fight set.
Throw those
absolutely.
kicks, man. Throw those kicks.
Absolutely. I got you, Jerry. I got you.
I want to come down and watch you train, man. I want to. Yes. I want to. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good, guys.
Jump spinning, man.
Yeah, man.
That was good.
That
was really
awesome.
good.
That was
J-
good.
you
What
know,
a great
the-
guy.
Oh, dude, I was blown away. I just, we saw him fight at Battlefield, and
And
we
that's
didn't
it.
hear him talk, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, he's this huge guy, probably, like, you just think of him like a caveman type guy, the way he beat
know.
the guy up, you know what I mean? And here he is,
Yeah.
Very articulate.
very
Yeah,
articulate, well spoken.
super smart. Yeah, I love how he broke down the wrestling. I asked him, and he just went super in depth. Even with the UFC contract,
I know.
Oh, yeah.
like he went right into that. I was just like, "You got your answer, right, Levente? You got that."
You don't see too many guys talk like that about it.
No, you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
This is very unique, I think.
It's true what he said too about the damage you take in boxing, kickboxing, the striking martial
Yeah,
arts, because
yeah.
it's like, damn,
Yeah.
like you can't.
Can't-
It's almost, I don't know what you
Can't
call
have
it.
1,000 fights.
No, you can't.
You
but
can't
wrestling-
emulate that
Fights,
just like you do in
Gary.
wrestling.
Yeah.
We'd be fucking mumble jumble after 1,000.
Yeah, his nose is like.
Who's the boxer with the most fights, Manny?
I don't know, but
There's a couple guys with
I mean,
hundreds.
like guys like Sugar Ray Robinson. I think he had close to 200 fights, man.
Yeah,
Those are a lot of fights.
Well, like Loma had like 200 amateur fights.
Oh no, 400 amateur.
400, yeah, 400 amateur.
Amateur, but that's a bit different than going 10 rounds of pro fights. But I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson used to fight twice a month for years on end. It's crazy.
Yeah, up in different divisions too, right?
Yeah, between welterweight to middleweight.
That's
even light
crazy.
heavyweight, I think.
Yeah, Jesus.
I know.
That
it's
is
nuts.
crazy. So yeah,
That
I mean,
was
that's-
back in the day, right? Back in the
Yeah.
day, you had to keep busy, so they didn't really train that much. Like competing was training, right?
Yeah.
Gloves
took a
were
lot of-
almost nothing.
So did
Yeah.
he just walk into the gym and say, "Hey, Manny, I looked you
Yeah,
up. Can you teach me
pretty
boxing?"
much.
Can you
Pretty
tell
much.
us about that?
Nothing. Just I don't remember the day per se, but what I remember is that I believe he called me. Oh, I'm a wrestler. I want to do some boxing. You're going to be at the gym, and so yeah, I'll be there. And so we just started going in the gym, and then started doing some boxing with him. And he really, like I said, he's a real cerebral guy. So when I talked to him about feinting and about cutting the distance, like what you want to do is you want to get your front foot in close to your opponent so you can land the punches. And he was kind of blown away. Wow, wow, that's what I want to learn. That's what I want to do. And so, he was, he's a real good student, man.
And he listened to you.
Yeah, and he listens. Yeah, he listens. And then when you see him in the fights, like you were talking, you see him fights about his hands. That was all stuff that we went over, like just the way how he gets angles, how he fakes us sometimes, and then throws, and the guys, and they're just little subtle things, just little subtle, like even a head fake or something. Like these are things that, a lot of guys, even guys that box for years, don't even do it, because they're just taught to throw punches, kid, throw punches, throw faster, throw harder, right? But
I was going to ask you this, Manny, actually, because my dad always says that, like, he finds the boxing in UFCs, like, not as... What do you think about that? Like,
well, it's not...
It's not as good as, let's say, like, a regular boxer.
No, it's not. But how can they be? Because it takes years and years to accomplish. But, some guy, like, I don't know.
Do you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that they're just throwing punches. They're not faking. They're not gauging distance or anything like that. Whereas I think Arjan is doing that, and
Yeah.
it's actually quite good the way he's setting it up and angling guys to land the right hand and stuff, and try to keep himself safe. So even if he does get caught with a shot, it's not going to be at full power, right? So
All right, guys, that's a wrap.
I'm Jerry Trimble.
I'm Manny Sobral.
And that's 2 world champs.